don't think I should wear brown hats in videos. It seems a bit biased, to be honest. When I'm talking about Russian watches, does it really matter? I think I'll change it anyway. Yeah. Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we'll be talking about Russian watches, specifically kind of 3 brands I think every collector should at least be aware of. This isn't an in-depth video because otherwise it would be way too long. And the history of Russian watches is really detailed and tied up in the space race and kind of a bit murky in places. I've seen like several articles I've used for research where they've just scored through stuff and gone, sorry, edit, this is incorrect. It's actually this, or we think it's this. So it's a little murky, but I can fairly confidently give you a little history on these 3 brands and kind of highlight my favorite models from each brand. So that's what I'm going to do here. Hi guys, welcome back. You might have noticed we're no longer Rerun Watches, we're now Samuel Mills. That is my name, and it ties in better with my Instagram and stuff, which is at sammil.s. I'm also on Clubhouse at Sam Mills if anyone has Clubhouse. I'm on there fairly often. I know that's a bit controversial at the moment, but I like the app. So today we're going to be talking through Russian watches. Personally, I heard about Russian watches fairly early in my collecting. However, I know a lot of people only really see kind of Swiss, German, Japanese every day. I think Russian watches have a certain charm to offer. Some of the designs are really weird, and some of them are tied very closely to the space race, which I think is very interesting. And whenever I'm, collecting speedies and moon watches and like the Belova moon watch, I think it's interesting to have something linked to the Russian side of the space race. Just a disclaimer, because I probably should put one, because I know people get annoyed. I don't speak Russian. I'm a native English speaker. So if I get some of these pronunciations a bit messed up, I apologize. I'm not trying to offend anyone. As I've said, we're mostly going to be focusing on around the time of the space race, pretty much from the 60s through the 80s. There might be some other stuff mentioned, maybe some modern watches, but that's the time period we're kind of looking at, because I think that's when most of the interesting designs came out. I don't want to do a deep dive in this video into the origins of the Russian watch industry, but actually only started in the 1930s, where they took... Seen a few things. I've seen they either hired some American watchmakers to come over and help them start a factory, or they bought out a bankrupt factory from America, and I guess maybe some of their watchmakers to come and help set up what was called the first Moscow watch factory. And then during World War II, some of the Russian watch factories switched over to making stuff for the war effort, similar to what was happening in Germany at the same time. This means there's a lot of different factories popping up and stuff like that. I'm just going to cover kind of the 3 main brands I think you should look for if you want to add a Russian watch to your collection. I'm going to highlight some really outstanding pieces which I personally like. These are all opinions. I'm not saying these are the best Russian watches out there, because they're probably not. They're pretty good bang for buck though, so let's get right into it. So the first brand on this list, Raketa, is my favorite. No apologies there, I own 2 of them. Actually the only brand I own on this list, although I've handled both of the others. I have a friend who has a few. This was a company founded in 1960, and it honestly has some of my favorite designs in the whole watch industry. Maybe I've just got a weird eye. I think they're very unique and pretty cool and inspired. So this wristwatch I have is called the Copernicus. This was named after Nicholas Copernic, who came up with what's called the heliocentric theory of the solar system. This is the theory where the sun is in the middle, so we know it's the correct theory now. And Raketa made this piece to celebrate him and his, I guess, correct theory. So these have very interesting hands. The hour hand is meant to represent the sun, that's why it's a big gold disc. And the minute hand is apparently meant to represent the moon. So if they overlap, it creates like an eclipse effect. This is a piece that I wanted for ages, and I actually got it in my last video when I unboxed a load of watches from Facebook Marketplace. And this is one of the reasons I bought that box of just odd watches off Facebook, because it's really distinctive and I could spot it even in the pretty rubbish photos. This one I have is the kind of black on black, black dial, black case. It's also a silver one with a silver textured dial, which I maybe even prefer. I want to get one of those in the future. There's a modern version of the Copernicus on screen now. Similar design, they've, I guess, modernized it, and as I said, given it a nicer movement. So if you're not into the vintage stuff, I would recommend checking that out. The other Raketa I own is this Big Zero pocket watch. This does come in wristwatch form, so it's not just a pocket watch thing. But from what I read, the wristwatch seemed like it would be too big for me. And I thought it was a really cool opportunity to add a kind of quirky little pocket watch to my collection. Has a nice ship on the back, which I really like, and it's a pretty solid feeling case. Again, just a simple manual eye movement, but it's really the dial design that you're looking at here. The big 0, 3, 6, and 9 numerals, and those triangle hour markers with the rounded tips. Just something I really enjoy. From what I've read, a lot of these that you find on eBay are actually Franken watches, which is a shame. So to avoid this, I would recommend doing your research. Two Broke Watch Snobs has a really good article on the Big Zero, which I read researching for this video. I really enjoyed that. And it pointed out a lot of things. But the basic thing, and the kind of most common Franken mistake I see, is you want to look for this rounded case design. And if you don't have this, if you have like stick lugs, it's not real. It's just a Big Zero dial and maybe movement, but in a generic case, which is a shame. From what I can tell, this pocket watch is all original, so I guess I got lucky. And from what I've seen, the original and the Franken watches aren't that far apart in price. Although I would recommend buying from a reputable dealer if you can find one, and they'll probably charge a premium because they know what they have, and they can guarantee authenticity. I think that's worth doing with Russian watches. And that sentiment of buying from someone trusted will be echoed throughout this video, because I don't want you guys to get stung by Franken watches. The second brand on this list, Vostok, is pretty widely talked about in the watch community. I kind of want to touch on the models and kind of educate you guys a bit more on it. I see some people who completely love them and have like 5, and some people who just disregard them completely and think they're rubbish. I've handled a few, and I can say they're not rubbish. They're pretty well built for the price. I haven't actually handled a modern one, so I'd be interested to see what those are like. But these are incredibly cheap dive watches, and the Amphibia, which is probably the most talked about model, is 200 meters water resistant. And I see this being given as an alternative option to the SKX fairly often. A friend of mine, Joe, did that, and he has a really interesting dial. I'll see if I can get a photo of his for this video. They also make, and again, excuse my pronunciation, the Komandirsky, which is a thinner and unfortunately less water resistant Amphibia. It's only 20 meters water resistant, which in my opinion makes it a dive style watch. But what makes these Vostoks really interesting, I think the case design and all that is pretty good. But I think what really makes them collectible is the dial configurations. And there's loads of these, so I'm just gonna kind of hit on a few that I like. There's the Scuba Doo, which is very common. They still make it today. I think if you search Amphibia on Amazon or eBay, it's probably the first result you're gonna see is like a blue dial with a scuba diver on it. Pretty cool first watch, and I guess nice to get new if you like that sort of thing. But if you look into vintage Vostok, you get some really interesting stuff. One of my favorites is called the Radio Room. It's a pretty bold design with these red markers every 15 minutes. And this actually serves a practical purpose. This was apparently after the sinking of the Titanic, protocol was put in place where every 15 minutes you had 3 minutes of radio silence in the shipping industry. And that was designed to listen out for distress signals from sinking ships. So this, in a way, is kind of an inventive complication that just indicates to radio workers, hey, radio silence should be practiced now. And I'm sure if the Swiss tried to make this complication, they'd make it way over the top with like a little alarm that goes off. But Russian ingenuity here, it's just some red on the dial. And it gives it a pretty cool functional design. And then one of the other designs that's talked about a lot is called the Desert Shield dial. It's very strange, it's got an American flag, and the history of this is pretty heavily contested, so I might actually make a video on it all by itself, especially if I manage to get my hands on one, because I do want to really track down a nice original example. These are again fairly often faked just because of the allure around having some Desert Shield dial, so be careful there, but if you can find an original one, I think it's a really cool piece. Okay, and the third brand here, Poljot, was actually a brand made by the first Moscow watch factory that I mentioned in the intro. This factory had a lot of different brands, but I think Poljot is probably one of the most interesting ones, and one of the ones I think most people should know about. Poljot is most known by vintage collectors for its Type 59 chronographs. And these are really an interesting proposition because they use movements based on the Venus 150 and 152. This was just old equipment bought from the Swiss and brought to Russia, like they originally did with that American watch factory. And this means there's column wheel Russian chronographs out there really cheap if you can find a good example. Unfortunately, these are reportedly pretty fragile watches, but I think having a column wheel chronograph just to play with or just to have in your collection for occasional wear is a really interesting idea. So if you can hunt down a good one, I would definitely go for it. Poljot also made the 2612, which was an alarm watch, and from all the sources I've seen and all the examples I've seen, it's probably the cheapest way to get an alarm complication in your collection without buying a quartz watch. These are easily under £100. From what I've seen, they're a lot less faked, so they're probably one of the safer models to buy off eBay. And personally, I really like some of the dial designs that come in. They're a lot more classic than some of the Vostoks and Raketas I've mentioned in this list. But I think the complication is really what makes it a good value. Poljot also had a deluxe line of watches, which is the only dress watch I'm mentioning in this video. I think these are an interesting alternative to, say, a vintage Tissot or a vintage Longines dress watch. And again, these are easily under £100, and from what I've seen in different photos and things, they look really nice, classic designs. And I think it's a good alternative if you want to add something to your collection a bit different and get yourself a proper dress piece. So this was in nowhere a deep dive video. It was just kind of an overview of some of my favorite watches from these three brands. I could do a whole video on like the Moscow Watch Factory, the Desert Shield dial, or and a Type 59 chronograph, and all the other chronographs that came after that one. There was some that based on Valjoux movements. But I just wanted to keep this video short and sweet. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Instagram at sammil.s. Comment your favorite Russian watch, maybe I missed something out from this video, and have a nice day.
I